So let's talk about marketing strategies. And this is getting into the more tactical stuff around how to inform your marketing strategy. So targeting is a very important process that I would suggest doing fairly early on in the development of a startup. So I'm sure you've all heard about lean product strategy, developing an MVP, and doing customer discovery. Targeting kind of goes along with customer discovery. So it's very much informing who are your customers and how do you talk to them. So targeting is identifying the customers for whom you will optimize your offering. This is where I talked about how marketing can inform product and that aspect of things. So the key in targeting is that you want to focus on these specific relevant factors. It might be true, for example, that all of your customers, because you're at a university and these are the folks that you talk to, happen to be young. However, is that age demographic, is that relevant to your product? Is that relevant to your product strategy? It may be or it may not be. The key of targeting is focusing on the things that are relevant. Maybe age isn't a relevant factor, but 80% of your customers being female, maybe that is a critical factor. Maybe you do want to target your product and target your marketing towards female customers. You have to sort of figure that out in tandem with developing your product. So there's demographic factors, which the two I just talked about, age and gender, are demographic. Also geography is demographic. Lots of things are demographic. And then there's behavioral and psychological factors, which are more things like, do our customers tend to shop online, or do they tend to shop in person in stores? Or do we want our customers to buy this product on an impulse, or do we want them to really think about having to buy this product? So those are different factors that you want to think about, and you want to consider both. They're both important to your marketing strategy. So here's some big traps in the targeting process. Again, talking about our relevant characteristics. You might notice all of our customers so far
I
have
can't
been.
see your screen right now. Somebody else is sharing their screen over yours.
Oh, weird. Let me try again. Share screen. This will replace someone's screen share. Can you see me now? Is this showing up?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Can you guys see this? Good?
Yes,
Yes.
we are good.
Okay, thank you. So again, irrelevant characteristics. Focus on the things that are going to actually matter to your selling process and to your product development. You may also decide who your customers are too early. If you're still in the product development stage, it may not be exact, and that's okay because marketing is a process and it's constantly iterative. So, there's no shame in trying to figure that out early, but don't get locked into that and assume that those are necessarily your only potential customers. Then there's two different sort of mistakes that even the largest companies make. The shotgun targeting is defining your customer segments too broadly. So, we serve anyone who's between the ages of 18 and 24. That may not be true. And then over segmentation is defining your segments way too narrowly and potentially missing customers. So, we target only women who are 18 who live in Georgia. That might be too narrow. Segmentation is the next process that you're going to go about when you're sort of defining your customer profiles and your marketing strategy. So this means you figured out who those potential buyers are. There's probably a couple of different what we call segments or profiles of buyers. This is the process of grouping them by identifying their relevant differences. So what makes a difference that you can group them in, which is the differentiation process. And then agglomeration means grouping them together between these different groups so that you can adjust your marketing and potentially your product strategy towards these different customers. So what I mean by that is you may develop a product that serves both 18 to 24-year-old men and 18 to 24-year-old women, but the messaging that sells them your products or that makes them want to buy your products is slightly different for those two groups. You would segment them and build different messaging for those different groups. That's segmentation. And the critical thing to think about when you're defining your segments is to group them by relevance, to make them exclusive, so they're different groups, but also to make them comprehensive so that those groups contain everyone within that segment. And by the way, jump in at any point with questions. Just go off mute or put them in the chat. This is getting into like the really tactical stuff. So some of the traps in segmentation is to group overlapping segments, so not actually differentiating them enough, and then just a failure to use it productively. If you define 4 segments, but you're speaking to them all in exactly the same way and marketing it to all of them in exactly the same way, there's kind of no point in segmenting, right? And then the last sort of critical strategy tactic I want to talk about is positioning. And this is that process of actually messaging things in different ways to different segments. So it's the company's view on how a set of customers should think about their product or offering. So how do you want 18 to 24-year-old women to think about your product? How do you want 18 to 24-year-old men to think about your product? And this draws on your product's value proposition, which could be different to different customers. Some segments may value a low price. Some segments may not care about the price, but value functionality. Some segments may not care about either of those things, but want great customer support. So it's thinking about what the value proposition to each of those different segments. And this can draw on, again, what we talked about, functional value. So how the product works, if it plugs into your other devices, whatever it happens to be. The psychological value, does the product make you feel good? Do you feel like you're buying something that's making you feel comforted or making you feel good to the world? This is when you think about a lot of the clothing brands that are pushing that they're using sustainable fabric. That's good for the world. That draws on the psychological value for customers. And then monetary value, which is it a good price? Is that messaging you want to push? We're the most affordable product. So it can be any and all of these things. You don't have to have all of them, by the way. It could be you choose to use one of them. It could be you choose to use all of them. And traps here are, there can be the trap of going too broad. We're the cheapest, best, most usable, most user-friendly product ever in the market. And your customer's looking at you like you're a startup. There's no way you do all of those things. So, you want to kind of pick and choose the things that you can really stand behind. And then also you might choose the wrong thing. If you don't do a good job with identifying your accurate target customers and accurately segmenting them, you might think your customers really care about price, and really they don't. So really defining these tactics in order and doing them comprehensively and accurately is super important. So some examples. I happen to really like the Geico Gecko. I think a lot of people do. And the value proposition that they are indicating here, what functional value, when we talked about value, so functional value, psychological value, and monetary value, what are they really pushing here? If you could put it in the chat and maybe you could read it off to me or come off mute.
And Anujit, do you want to unmute yourself, or Cameron also unmuted himself first as well. So
yeah, I didn't want to talk over anybody. Right out the gate, I would say probably emotionally appealing to just the time constraint that a lot of people feel. So making it seem like an efficient and not time-consuming process, and also appealing to the monetary value of just clearly indicating that there is money to be saved when compared to competitors.
I think that's exactly it, right? So they honed in on those two things. First of all, yeah, you're going to probably have a price difference. You could save 15%. But also, this is going to be fast. We get it. You're busy. You don't have a lot of time to think about your car insurance. We'll get this taken care of for you. And the thing I want to point out that is really good about this one is when we talk about being too broad, Geico really does a good job of tempering that. So they don't make statements like, we're going to save you the most money. They don't say, we are the cheapest car insurance. What they promise is 15 minutes might be able to save you 15% on your car insurance. So it's kind of that easy, I get it right away. It draws on some specific value for me, but it's not overpromising in a way that the customer wouldn't believe it. So this is a marketing fail, actually. This is not a successful example. Burger King, a couple years ago, marketed low-calorie French fries called Status Fries, and they apparently had 40% less fat and 30% less calories. No offense if anyone liked the Status Fries, but the product was quickly killed. I think it was a couple months, and was very much considered a marketing fail. Can anyone sort of tell me why Burger King misunderstood their customers in this case? Anyone want to come off mute? Or chat is good too.
Because people who eat fast food are more into how things taste. They're not necessarily trying to watch their weight. It's not necessarily something of importance to them.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So if you're gonna go get fries at Burger King, you want them to taste good. You want fries at Burger King, right? Like I've definitely had days where I'm like, I really just want Burger King fries and I want to dip them in a shake and I want them to taste awesome. And their value proposition is that it tastes great and not necessarily, as health conscious. So this was a product that did not work. Chipotle is a marketing win. This campaign, Chipotle went through a lot of marketing fails. I want to just say that, but this campaign happened to be a marketing win. Their profits went up. So this campaign was called their Food with Integrity campaign, and it happened actually. You may remember that Chipotle experienced that big issue with E. coli in some of their ingredients and food safety issues. So this was a campaign that came out of that, and the Food with Integrity campaign was basically, this is all we've got in our food. It's all ingredients you can pronounce. It's real food. You look at it and you know what it is. Like, oh, tomatoes. I know what that is. I see them in the grocery store. It's not no weird ingredients or weird chemicals. And this really drew on both the functional value to customers. So what is in their food? Are they getting good quality? And then the emotional value of consumers that want to eat real food, wanted to eat food that they understood. So this was a big marketing win, and Chipotle, after that E. coli whole issue, actually restructured their whole marketing team and did a really good job of coming back from that. Any questions so far? Anything in chat? Anything anyone wants to bring up?
There's nothing in chat at the moment.
Perfect.
Quick question, just before you move on.
Yeah.
What are some popular avenues for conducting effective customer profiling and research?
It's a great question. So popular avenues for large companies, I know we've mostly talked about large companies so far, and we're going to get into startup examples. Research groups are very effective and very widely used. So research surveys, for example, and there are a few, actually Engage has a portfolio company that does research surveys through a mobile app for corporations. It's called Gauge Insights. But research surveys are very popular, as well as if you want to get like sort of qualitative assessments, research analyses where people actually sit down in a room and either try a product or talk about a product or a service and give sort of qualitative assessments of what would be important to them. Those are a lot of the important things. Now, for something like a restaurant, they really do look at things like Yelp reviews, or other more digital products look at things like customer satisfaction scores. They look at things like how long people are on your website, what are click-through rates for if you look at something, and whether the marketing message sort of worked and whether you clicked through to buy, all kinds of things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. So getting a little more into the tactics, and I want to kind of speed through this because I know we're getting at time. There is a framework called the G-Stick framework, which is your goals, your strategy. We've talked about those, your tactics. So what are you actually going to do the marketing? Are you going to use advertising or content or social media or whatever? Implementation, which is like, if we decide we're using Twitter, how many times a week are we tweeting? And then the control, which is evaluating the progress. Is the tweeting working? Is it growing our Twitter following? Are people buying our product? And that has to be constantly iterative, like I mentioned. If it's not working, what can we do to make it work? This is kind of like a tactical, these are the steps that we follow. And you can see how all of the different things that we've talked about today, the product, the service, the brand, the price, the incentives, communication and distribution, it all kind of fits into, I really like to use Amazon Prime because it's a great example of how marketing touches every aspect of a customer's brand, and Amazon Prime is a great example of that. And these are kind of all the things that fit into that marketing mix. And then really quickly, some tactics on marketing for startups. So there are two different sort of strategies that you want to think about. What I call ramen marketing, because startups, there's the whole idea of someone sleeping on a couch and eating ramen while they start their company, is how do you reach the highest number of your most relevant customers spending the least amount of money? So like ramen, how do you feed yourself and eat calories and not be hungry spending the least amount of money? And that's something you're going to want to think of. And then lean startup marketing really goes off the lean startup principle, which is how do you do a lot of different things that don't cost a lot of money and don't take a lot of time, and figure out of those 12 things, these are the things that worked. So we do social media, we do a blog, we do content marketing, we do product placement, we do word of mouth. These two things really sold product for us. You want to think about those two frameworks. So some ideas are social media campaigns like the IHOP campaign that are easily shareable. Think about creating your own hashtag or generating user-generated content, so making people post pictures of themselves while using their product. Build relationships with reporters. It only costs $4, $5, depending on where you go, I guess, to take a reporter out to coffee, and earn media, again, is free. It takes time, but it's free. You can create a category and own it. So similarly to The Knot, which I'll show you in a minute, they created the wedding planning content category, and they're the leader in that. It generates a ton of traffic for them, caused a lot of people to go to their website. You can become a trusted resource. So this is things like webinars, like blogs that say, for example, how Salesforce during their Dreamforce conference has how to be a good salesman, like that, or salesperson. That, has nothing to do specifically with selling Salesforce, but they then become a trusted resource. And then you can create a community. And we'll talk about an example of this that I pulled from the Engage portfolio, which is the Mom Project. So the Mom Project is a company that it's a marketplace, a job marketplace for moms and dads returning to work after having kids. So they post jobs for women or men that are returning to work. And they've created this program called Unity, which is their community of moms and dads returning to work, looking for jobs, just coming back, figuring out the workforce again. And it pairs them with professional coaches, and it really creates a strong, tight-knit community of people that are going to spread the word about the Mom Project through word of mouth, post about it on social media, talk about it to their friends. It's really, really valuable for them. And this is some of the Twitter noise around the Mom Project's Unity Hour and Unity program, and you'll see that they even have their own hashtag called #UnityHour. You can generate, again, organic media. This is also pulled from our portfolio. So one of our companies, Gooder, is a food reclamation business, and the founder, Jasmine Crow, has generated a ton of media. This is from NBC News that, again, spurs people to go to their website and is, essentially free. And then again, I have the example of The Knot because I just really, really like how they have created this entire category all on their own of, basically wedding planning content. That's what it is. And they even generated this wedding industry report that has really nothing to do specifically with selling The Knot or The Knot services, but is very focused on just driving traffic and driving customers and establishing them as a thought leader.
Thank you so much for being here, and thanks to Holly and Engage for just making themselves available to provide such wonderful insights about how we can actually move our startups forward. So thank you so much, and feel free to jump off the call whenever you are ready.